Good morning, everyone. Tuesday, the 3rd of August, and it's time for another morning briefing with myself, Andy Bargh, and Sean Martin. I think there's only one name on everyone's lips this morning, Sean, and that's Joe Hart, who seems to be on his way up to Celtic Park from Spurs for a fee of around £1 million. Look, we can't deny it's been a massive problem position for Celtic over the last season or so with Barkas and Bain, both of them struggling to nail down a starting spot, and when they do, struggling to keep the ball out of the net. Is Joe Hart someone that excites you, or are you slightly apathetic towards this signing?
I wouldn't say I was apathetic. I'm apprehensive, definitely. I mean, in terms of the keepers that we've got just now, is Bain better than Barkas? Probably. But I still don't think either of the two of them are Celtic starting quality. So it did need a solution if they were willing to go and get one. Whether Joe Hart's that solution or not, I suppose only time will tell. I'm not sure he's massively suited to Ange's style. We kind of touched on it last week about Guardiola didn't fancy him for passing the ball out from the back pretty sharpish after he arrived at City. But fundamentally, I think he should be more reliable than Barkas and Bain in terms of saves, and perhaps even more crucially, organising the defence in front of him, which seems to be a real key problem. A 3-year deal is what's been talked about, and it could be a bit of a shocker, or it could be a masterstroke, because I don't know what you think, but it seems to me that they're essentially hoping that he goes through a career revival in a similar way that Gordon and Foster did going to Celtic. And I think that's maybe a bit of a risk going for that particular hat-trick.
Was surprised, certainly, to read about the likelihood of it being a 3-year deal. I don't think that for a keeper, though, it's as much of a problem. We've seen across the other side of the city what an old goalkeeper can do with Alan McGregor. We saw what Craig Gordon did when he came back to Celtic after playing next to no football for a few seasons, and then was absolutely superb for a stage. I think that Joe Hart at 34 still has plenty to offer, and I think that maybe there's a bit of short-sightedness around it because he's not been as prominent in everyone's footballing lives. Of course, recently with the fact that he left Man City, he went across to Italy. How many people are watching Torino week in, week out? Not many people in Glasgow, I'm sure. And then to Burnley and to West Ham, where he only played half of the Premier League campaign. So people aren't seeing Joe Hart as regularly. Don't think that means that he's necessarily become a bad goalkeeper, though. And I think I would again draw comparisons with the Craig Gordon scenario. When he came in, he did a great job for Celtic after playing very, very little football.
I do see your point. I don't necessarily know if it's just because he's not played in the last couple of seasons, but because I think the perception of him was that he was on the decline before that. But I mean, as you say, the precedent with us, with Celtic, is that Fraser Forster's done it. He only played once, I think, in about a year and a half at Southampton before he came back up. Obviously, yes, it was an environment that he knew and had already thrived in, which probably helped. But Craig Gordon was more injuries rather than just a lot of game time. It didn't look as if he would ever play again at one stage. So his recovery was remarkable. So I do agree with you. I think there's less to be concerned about the lack of game time than probably first thought. It's really just one of those things. We're going to need to see how it goes. I do think his experience could be the crucial factor in it in terms of the defence in front of him. I don't know what you think about that, if that's as important as his ability, or if it's a mixture of the two. Or...
Yeah, I think with that experience, though, it's confidence, because looking at Barkas and Bain, they don't seem like the surest of heads there in the 18-yard box coming to collect the ball or make a decision, where I think that Joe Hart is someone that would thrive in that sort of situation where the ball's there, he's going to go and win it, and he'll take a few players out if he has to go and get it. He's not a shrinking violet, Joe Hart. He's the presence, I think, that you need in your 18-yard box and between the sticks. I think that he's a good communicator. We'll be constantly talking to the centre-halves, which I think is good when we've got the young boys in there. Murray or Welsh or even Hield if he sticks around. So yeah, I think that overall it ticks a lot more boxes than what Celtic currently have in goals.
I think that's fair enough. I think you've got to remember, I know this is going back a good while now, but there was, albeit tentative, talk that he was a kind of personality that could easily take the England armband at one point and stuff. So I do take your point that that the guy is obviously more influential, and that would be a bonus to have at the back, considering the way that Bain and Barkas don't exactly inspire confidence in the defenders in front of them.
Let's not forget though that Joe Hart this is not a journeyman goalkeeper. He was extremely successful with Manchester City, winning a couple of Premier Leagues and various trophies as well, the FA Cup and the League Cup. 75 England caps. Okay, England didn't have major success at the tournaments that he was part of, but they were a pretty strong team, and Joe Hart's played at major tournaments, at at least three major tournaments. So this is a guy that is not coming in having been chucked around from club to club. Yes, he's been at West Ham and Burnley in the last couple of seasons, but for a long time he was the number one of a very, very good Man City team. And I don't think you lose that just by sitting on the bench at Tottenham for a season.
Yeah, well, we hope not. We'll see. We'll see if it is indeed to be him. Then he's definitely better than what they've got. So that, in a sense, is automatically an upgrade. But in terms of the style and stuff, I suppose we'll just see if we can adapt to that. But
Owen makes a point here, which I think is something that might be on a few people's minds, because one of the stipulations of being a goalkeeper for Celtic under Ange Postecoglou seems to be that you need to be comfortable in taking the ball from your defenders and giving it back to them, clipping it into the midfield, finding feet and starting attacks. I think that it's obvious that Pep Guardiola didn't fancy Joe Hart to do that job, despite him being quite a good goalkeeper. He's a different USP to Claudio Bravo and Ederson. So is it a really suitable signing if Celtic are wanting to play this type of football, or is he there simply to try and keep the ball out the net more reliably than the goalkeepers that Celtic currently have?
Well, I mean, I don't think that Ange Postecoglou is going to change the way that he wants to play. I've said that a few times. It's like the board knew who they were getting. So if he's gave this transfer his okay, then you would need to assume that he thinks he is capable of doing what he's going to be asked to do, because he will be asked to do that. In terms of the other side, I mean, that I've said to you before, fundamentally you need to be able to make the saves when called upon, no matter how good or bad you are with your feet. And on the face of it, you would think that he would be better suited to that than Bain and Barkas have been so far.
Well, I would be surprised if this was Ange Postecoglou's identification for a signing, because Joe Hart has been linked with Celtic before. I think he was last year before he went to Tottenham. Am I right in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
So he's someone that's been linked with the club. I think the recruitment team have probably suggested to Ange Postecoglou, we can get this guy for £1 million. Here's what he's done. Postecoglou will be well aware of who Joe Hart is, so it's not like that's news to him. But this is the signing that we can try and agree here with Spurs. Is this something that you would be on board with? Do you like the way that sort of thing gets done, or would you prefer Ange Postecoglou to be identifying who he wants to be in goals for the Celtic team and performing to the style that he clearly wants to implement at Celtic?
I think it would need to be a hybrid regardless. You can't really have just the manager identifying and scouting and doing all that. I think he certainly, especially someone with a really defined style, I think he's got to have at least the final say. But we don't know if he's been offered more, or if it's literally just Hart that he's been offered now, and he's thinking maybe, well, I better try and make the best of this. But no, I think when it comes to identifying targets that will play in his system, I'm sure he's got people that he would prefer, but whether it's someone that the club are offering him, he still surely has to have that final say if it's going to be, because otherwise what's the point of signing him if he's not going to be able to play the system that he is wanting him to play? So
yeah, absolutely. And we've seen, even he's no longer a Celtic player, with Olivier and Cham, when players get signed for clubs when managers don't want them, it doesn't really end well, does it?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, we'll move on to Thursday's game. Celtic are playing Jablonec away from home in the first leg on Thursday. It's been a topic of conversation on the morning briefing over the past week about whether Odsonne Edouard should be starting at the minute, given where his current headspace seems to be and the transfer rumours surrounding him, kind of limiting the performances that he's giving, maybe worried that he gets injured and then that scuppers any potential of a move. You know what it's like. It happens somewhere every summer. But Furuhashi is now in quarantine complete, made his debut against Hearts and ready to play. He's an attacker in general, can play wide or through the middle, but he has played through the middle for the Marinos back in Japan. and during their season, which started earlier this year. Do you think that you'd be comfortable just putting him through the middle and letting him loose rather than sticking with Edouard for Thursday?
I think he will start Edouard, to be honest. I think as long as he's still here, he probably will start. It was a hard environment to be put into for your first game the other night at Tynecastle for Furuhashi. I didn't think he rose to it. I don't think he rose to it, really. I think he was pretty poor in the 11 minutes that he got, as harsh as that might seem. But maybe he would do better given a start, maybe because it's in Europe, maybe through the middle, it would make the difference. But like what I said yesterday with Carl Starfelt, it was far too early to judge anyway.
Yeah.
So, he's apparently said that he would like to play through the middle. If that's where he starts, then fair enough. I don't think he'll start over Edouard on Thursday, though. I don't know what you think.
Can you see him starting, though, over Abada, who seems to be getting the nod at the minute, or Forrest as well, who's back in the reckoning? I mean, you would imagine then that if it would be Edouard in the middle with Forrest and Abada either side of him. Furuhashi, he's clearly a player that was on a bit of a rollover in Japan, and his momentum might have been slightly disrupted by coming over here. But if he's a player who's already in the midst of a big confidence booster from his performances back home, then it might be the wise thing just to put him straight in the team.
Possibly. I mean, I'm not against it. I just don't think he will. I think Edouard will be starting. But Abada, to be honest, he has kind of faded in particularly the second half of games, but he still looks lively, especially in the first half against Hearts. I actually did think he done quite well, at least direct. He's always going to be direct, and I think he is going to be a good signing. I think most people were surprised to see Forrest starting off the left. I still think he maybe looks as if he's not quite there yet. There was flashes that makes me think it won't be long before he is, but I think he probably will start. I wouldn't mind actually seeing him start back on the right, because I think Christie's got to start
on the left.
Well, on the presumption that he is going to stick with Turnbull again through the middle, then yeah, I would start Christie on the left. He also played on the left when he came on for those last 10, 11 minutes against Hearts. So I think he's got to play. And I think if Forrest is going to start, I would like to see him back out on the right.
Do you prefer Christie through the middle? Because Christie has a controlled aggression about his game, which I think is really, really valuable to Celtic. And with him and Cal McGregor and Sorrow in there, I think that adds a bit more bite to the midfield than Turnbull. No harm to Turnbull. I think he's a very gifted and talented player, and I think he brings a lot to the Celtic team. There's something about Christie for me, though, where I think I feel just maybe a bit more comfortable that he's going to provide a strong performance.
I agree with you that he's better through the middle, but based on the Hearts game as well, I think Ange looks as if he is going to stick with Turnbull. Maybe it's because Christie's still not signed a new deal. If he's going to, maybe it doesn't feel it's maybe worth it putting him in the middle when Turnbull is going to need to be the guy playing there. And he's maybe thinking it's as well starting him there and using Christie out wide when needed. But I do think that Christie's got to start if he's fit. He's got to be in the team, whether it's left or central. I would have him in.
Would you play him off the right? I mean, we've seen him do that for Scotland on various occasions, and then drifting infield and getting a shot away with his left, which we know Christie is quite a big fan of.
I mean, he could play on either flank. I'm just basing it on the fact that when Ange has played him, it's been wide left, and Forrest is more suited to the right, more inclined to be playing in the right wing, although he can play in the left as well. So it's good options to have that they could play in either wing. I just went with the left wing because that's where he's been putting them so far.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that front three is chosen and links up throughout the season, because Furuhashi, certainly when we started doing our research on him for the website, seemed to be okay. He's a wide player that'll come inside, and then when you realise, actually no, this season in the past 5 months or so, he's been a forward through the middle. So it was obviously very versatile in that regard, and by gosh, he knows where the goal is. His goal record in the past couple of seasons is quite frightening, really. So I think that you have to consider that going into Thursday's game. This is a guy that is free scoring over in Japan, and I think that you have to capitalise on someone when they're in the right mindset and the right place mentally to just go on and perform the way they have been. I know that there's a bedding in process and time to adapt and all that sort of stuff, but we've seen loads of times, and I'm not just talking about with Celtic here, that We throw a player in at the deep end, they swim. They don't. If they're good enough, they will be fine.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, I just don't know if he will put him in through the middle when Edouard's still available.
But is it the real Edouard?
Sorry?
Is it the real Edouard, though?
Will he please stand up? No, I still think it's been overstated how bad he's apparently been the last couple of games. He's definitely not performing at the level he can. And there's been flashes, but I think you could argue that with a few of the players that it's only been in flashes. And I think the fact that he started, I mean, it's been suggested that he's going to be away for the past 2-3 games now, and he started them all. So I think that probably continues on Thursday unless something changes tomorrow.
You know what it's like. It'll go into deadline day, won't it? With
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do us. 15 minutes. All right. So we'll be back again tomorrow morning. We'll have a deeper look and a deeper preview to the Jablonec qualifier on Thursday. But until then, cheers, Sean.
Cheers.